Welcome back to the Warehouse Podcast. I'm Tyler.
I'm GIC.
And I'm Eli.
And we're reunited after a week without Eli. It feels good.
It does. I'm glad to be back. I really am.
Yeah, we missed you. It wasn't the same. And we actually took longer to record the episode without you here. So maybe you add some pace to our recording sessions.
I keep the cadence.
Yeah,
maybe.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I don't know. Maybe I am discouraged from going on long tangents when I know someone else is gonna speak on the topic. So.
Yeah, Eli also will cut you off occasionally, which I don't do as often, which I think is good. It's good that he cuts you off sometimes.
Yeah, it's a brotherly thing,
Yeah, but you guys are in the same area today, recording together, so that's pretty cool.
Not even the same zip code, like the same room. Yeah.
We're sitting right next to each other if you want to go check us out on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yes. As long as we don't make too many gaffes on here, I do put the videos on the YouTube. But sometimes when I have to cut it up a bunch, I'm like, I'm not doing that on the video.
You don't want to see us popping all over the screen.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, we're back together after what was a pretty terrible week for the Orioles. I think it's fair to say they look as bad now as they have at any point in the last, 2 or 3 years. This has been pretty sad to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty bad in the past 2 or 3 years too, but I would say at least on par with, some of the atrociousness.
Yeah, I mean, they're like 2-15 or 2-13 or something like that. It's absurd.
Yeah.
We have one major league starting pitcher right now.
That's true.
And we have we'll call Matt Harvey like a quarter of one. He used to be a full one, and he's taken a couple steps back this month.
Yeah.
And we get maybe 1 win a week at this point. So
which is not, I think the Orioles are on pace now for 68 wins for the season, which feels right, but they were just doing so much better early in the season that I think we were on pace for like 75, 76, and this has really stunted that growth. But all right, well, let's get into some stuff that happened this week, because it's not all bad necessarily. It's some things that we can spin into a positive light. And the first one is that Rio Ruiz is gone, guy. Well, he's DFA'd. He's not released just yet, but he's no longer on the 40-man roster. So let's just think about that first, separate from the move made in conjunction with it. Rio Ruiz is gone. Thoughts? Who wants to jump in here?
I guess I will. I mean, I guess from my perspective, obviously he was not hitting the ball. He was playing pretty terribly leading up to this moment. I guess what I'll say is that it is a little surprising to me that he got so much playing time through the first part of this season for him to get cut at this point. So it seemed like the Orioles were really invested in him and trying to find a position for him that worked and everything like that. And then to just to immediately move on, especially when there are not many better available options than Rio Ruiz at this point. That part of it was pretty surprising to me.
Yeah, I was a little shocked too. Eli, what were your thoughts when you saw the news?
Yeah, we talked about this at the beginning of the year, and we all really agreed that Rio Ruiz was not going to be here even midway through the season. And all of us said the same thing, like, why is he staying on now when we all know he's just going to be cut partway through? And then, like with the transition to second base, he made a couple nice plays off the bat. Like we were like, oh, maybe the Orioles have kind of figured something out. No, he hit below the Mendoza line. He was terrible. And it's about time to see him gone. The one thing I will say is that I think part of the reason he stuck around so long is just because, some combination of those infielders we've been looking at AAA, it'd be good for them to have another couple months. Jahmai Jones is a little banged up right now. And it just kind of made sense to just kind of milk him for what we could. But at this point, it's so unbearable. And we have Pat Valleca who can step in that, just get rid of him.
Well, and what's also kind of interesting is Ruiz still had, I think, at least one option, maybe two years left. So he was a guy that was flexible, and the Orioles could have said, all right, let's send him down and have Urias up for a little bit. But they kind of they took a turn I wasn't expecting and promoted Stevie Wilkerson, which required somebody to be DFA'd or removed from the 40-man to make that happen. And, we know what Rio Ruiz is. Sorry, I did a Scott Garceau there. But we also know just as much who Stevie Wilkerson is. So I'm not sure what this gains us. But Jesse, you were very passionate before the podcast and concerned about the addition of Stevie Wilkerson. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not excited, and I mean, yeah, exactly. He's a known quantity. He's been up and back down for pretty routinely. Well, the up part, I wouldn't say is as routine, but at one point for the Orioles a couple of years ago, he was up and down pretty frequently, and yeah, I mean, the Orioles know everything about him. Basically, he's not a kid anymore at this point where the Orioles are worth exploring. And I guess that's the disappointing part of the Rio Ruiz thing is, of course, I'm not that devastated Rio Ruiz is gone, but the fact that he's gone without anything replacing him that makes sense in my mind, that's what's a little puzzling.
So the thing to me there is I think that the replacement is going to be Pat Valaika. I think Pat Valaika can be looked at as the replacement. And then the question is who was replacing Pat Valaika as a backup infielder? And that was what they picked Stevie to do. And so, if I had to guess, if I had to project out, I think that within 2 months, Stevie Wilkerson is DFA'd again. We stick him back in the minors. And one of those AAA infielders we've been talking about is up as our utility guy.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is like the swap of Wilkerson and Ruiz, you don't lose a ton just because Wilkerson has options too. He just wasn't on the 40-man, so you had to make a move there. And Wilkerson has in the past played center field before. He's played the outfield before. He can technically play all of the infield positions too. So maybe he's older, about him, but he's at least more flexible and fungible for Brandon Hyde to kind of move around the diamond.
I was going to add that is I definitely think that is part of the equation too, is that, yeah, he does have this flexibility. I mean, the outfield flexibility, I don't think the Orioles need as much or find as relevant, but definitely the infield flexibility, I feel like that is definitely part of the Orioles thinking here.
Yeah, I mean, and we've already seen some of the issues though with the injury bug in the outfield this season. Santander is just coming back. He's got a history of getting hurt. Austin Hayes has already been hurt once this year. He gets hurt a lot. DJ Stewart gets hurt all the time. Really, the only infielder that doesn't have injury issues, thank goodness, is our center fielder, Cedric Mullins. Now, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen. But, that's the one position I think Wilkerson has played, but I really wouldn't want to watch him play again. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really super excited about it, but I also not sad to see Ruiz go. And there weren't that many other alternatives that were likely to happen at the moment. But yeah, I think as soon as Jahmai Jones is healthy and maybe ready to come back, that could be a move. And we'll see. Good luck to Stevie. He had a good first couple games here, and he's pitched once already.
Yeah, I did want to shout out the return of Dr. Poo Poo. For those who don't remember, Stevie Wilkerson had actually I think it was 5 1/3 innings over the course of 2019. And Pedro Severino nicknamed him Dr. Poo Poo because he just kept throwing poo poo up to the plate. And he came in and he threw a 45-mile-an-hour pitch to Joey Wendell and got him to swing through it. There was a bomb on the next pitch, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah, it was Wilkerson years ago that closed out that long game against the Angels and got a save out of it. So,
right,
he kind of goes down with Chris Davis in the annals of Orioles position players pitching. All right, let's move on. Well, speaking of Chris Davis, we had some Chris Davis news this week. No, he's not playing baseball. He has actually been deemed officially out for the season. He's getting hip surgery. It's not been revealed whether that hip surgery is related to what I think was a back issue that kept him out early in the season. But Jesse, you had said prior to the season, and maybe Eli and I agreed, I can't remember, but you had said that you were pretty confident he wasn't going to play a game for the Orioles this season, and that is correct. What are your thoughts or your feelings that Chris Davis is not going to suit up for the Orioles this year?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the writing has kind of been on the wall for a while now that this was going to happen. I mean, just the fact that he's been so inactive, the fact that he hasn't been a consideration really at all by the front office, by Hyde. It was clear even when he was playing the little time that he has the past couple of years that they we're just trying to hide him, not even trying to rehabilitate him or anything. So I think at this point, the Orioles don't see any hope at all for the return of Chris Davis. And I think that this makes sense given where they are kind of thinking about him and where they probably should have been thinking about him for a lot longer than they have. So,
Eli, do you think this is we've seen the last of Chris Davis in an Orioles uniform, period?
Well, I think that, I think he'll pop up at spring training, and I think he might stay around as some sort of advisor or some sort of whatever. They do like him in the clubhouse. They say he's a good dude to have around. So I do not think we'll see him suited up on the field anymore, though. And I think this is kind of especially pertinent because Ryan Mountcastle has shown a lot of, shown he has trouble in the outfield. And so him being pushed to almost exclusively a first base DH role, I think has been, it put a lot of pressure on that Chris Davis situation because, with DJ Stewart and the potential we see in the bat with him, we want to get him at bats at DH. We want to get Mountcastle at bats at DH. Obviously, we have Trey Mancini there, and Hayes, Mullins, Santander are going to be holding down the outfield, hopefully. So there's really just no place for Chris Davis to go. And I don't want to say that this hip surgery is a huge, great win for the Orioles roster for the rest of the season, but it kind of is. So it's comforting in a way that they're not going to have to play these games with him.
Yeah, it was going to be a juggling act for sure. And it is fortunate we don't have to watch that now. Now the offseason becomes kind of interesting. A lot of the talk around baseball is that the CBA is going to expire this offseason prior to the start of the 2022 season. There's been discussion that the Orioles are just holding on to Davis because there's thoughts that the 2022 season will be abbreviated in some way, shape, or form. And then Davis's contract for the year would be prorated rather than paying him the full amount. And then once the length of the 2022 season can be determined, then the Orioles can make a decision on Chris Davis. We just saw the Angels cut Albert Pujols. Miguel Cabrera is having a bunch of trouble with the Tigers, who are bad. That could be coming to a head there as well. Like, we're seeing a lot of these older guys who used to be good, not really, living up to those contracts. And, we'll see. Davis, I think, like you said, his name will pop up again in February, maybe when the Orioles get to Sarasota. But if anything funky goes on with the CBA, this Chris Davis's days in an Orioles uniform are probably over.
Right.
Somebody that's season is just getting started. Well, he started earlier in the year, but he's been hurt for quite a while, is Anthony Santander. He returns as we're recording this episode on Friday. He is in the lineup for tonight's game, batting fourth. So the Orioles finally have, again, they had it for one day, I think earlier in the season, of an outfield of Santander, Mullins, and Hayes, and DJ Stewart was also on the roster. And now it's back again. How are you guys feeling about Santander returning? Can he be the sort of injection of life that this Orioles lineup has needed recently?
Well, he definitely didn't start the year well at all for the Orioles. It was very frustrating just because we were hoping that he was going to build upon the nice season that he put together last year. And a lot of the Orioles offense was struggling at the time when he was struggling. But it would have been nice, obviously, to see him perform better. But this is another opportunity for him to kind of straighten things out. He is going to have a lot of opportunity to play. I mean, by him being in the lineup, hitting fourth tonight, even, it's definitely an indication he's going to resume his spot, hitting either 2 through 4 somewhere in the order, basically every night. And I mean, he definitely has the opportunity to prove himself and to put together a better season hitting than he did at the beginning of the year. And maybe if some of the Oriole hitters around him can get it going as well, maybe that will put him in a better position to hit better than he was before.
Yeah, I mean, if you care at all about minor league rehab numbers, Santander did go 4 for 12 with a home run, couple RBI. That's a 333 batting average. So, he didn't look totally rusty down there in the minors. Eli, what are your thoughts on Santander's return?
Yeah, so I just wanted to point out, you talked about the rehab numbers. Jacob deGrom was on a rehab start the other day, and he was blowing 102 past these high A kids. And the opposing team, the Palm Beach Cardinals or whatever it was, started tweeting out like, "Can we get this guy off the mound?"
Yeah.
It was just funny. Anyways, back to the Orioles and Santander. Yeah, so Santander had an OPS of 890 last year. His slugging was through the roof at 575. Just legitimate power numbers. His OBP was not quite as good, but what that shows is he has the ability to make good hard contact as well as anyone in the league when he's on and when he's right. So seeing him come back, hopefully healthy, that gives me a lot of confidence. The Orioles offense has been struggling, and you put an extra guy, either on base for Trey Mancini or behind Mancini to give him some cushion, force pitchers to throw to Mancini. I love that, and I think this is the type of impact bat that the Orioles can need to give us a little jolt. I'm not saying we're going to turn into a top 10 offense in the league or anything, but yeah, you feel good about it. He is, if anybody could be coming back from injury right now, Santander is one of the best bats in the lineup, and he's a good one to have.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely adds a dimension to the Orioles lineup. When I saw the lineup today, because I get the little push notification when the lineup gets posted, it's like, oh, that looks a lot nicer to have Anthony Santander batting fourth rather than Michael Franco or Pedro Severino or whatever Brandon Hyde was trying to do to get the lineup going. So
Freddie Galvis.
Did he bat four? Oh yeah, Galvis batted four. He's not up to two though, Jess.
Yeah.
Now I saw some consternation yesterday about the move to get Santander on the roster, which was they demoted Ryan McKenna. I'm fine with that. I think that's what you would have expected to happen is, Ryan McKenna's a rookie, not playing every day, put him down in Norfolk, let him play every day. But some people definitely felt more like DJ Stewart should have been the move, or maybe you do something with Valleca, or you already get rid of Wilkerson or whatever. I've seen it. People have their opinions online. I mean, do you guys have any issue with McKenna being the move for Santander?
I mean, for me, well, first of all, McKenna being an outfielder, I mean, that's a big reason it's not someone like Valleca. No, but I mean, I think it makes sense. I think he definitely doesn't have the same upside that someone like DJ Stewart has. Yes, DJ Stewart is not as good defensively and has to DH a decent amount of the time. But we know that DJ Stewart is definitely a more competent hitter than Ryan McKenna. And I mean, when McKenna came up, the Orioles organization is not expecting a ton out of McKenna. When we brought him up, it wasn't like this is one of the key pieces we're relying on to move us into the future. He was more or less a stopgap piece that was going to be kind of on the shuttle between AAA and the bigs. And at his best, he's probably not in the lineup every day, even at his best. So no, I mean, it's not surprising. I don't think people should be, I get liking him as a piece to have on the team, but I mean, I feel like people were pretty confused about where Ryan McKenna was at in the eyes of the Orioles, because him getting demoted is, should be fully expected.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was I saw somebody say it should have been Ryan Mountcastle instead. And it's like, all right, let's chill. Let's relax. But all right, cool. So let's talk about another player that's been up and down a little bit. Bruce Zimmerman is not starting again for the Orioles, but he did come in following a pretty disastrous opener performance from Adam Plutko. Zimmerman came in and kind of shut the Yankees down, did give up a couple home runs, or a home run to Aaron Judge, but pretty much everybody does that. But Bruce Zimmerman looked pretty good, sort of in a hybrid role of relief, but multi-inning relief, long relief, sort of a, Ryan Yarbrough kind of deal there. I don't know how you want to describe it, but, Eli, I don't know if you have general thoughts about Zimmerman's performance or how the Orioles are sort of handling moving Zimmerman up and down like that. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that, we had a couple discussions in the last couple episodes of this pod, talking about how the young guys were being treated a little bit, kind of popping up and down. This was another situation where Zimmerman had struggled for a couple outings, goes down. I'm sure he just gets a bullpen under a no stress situation, comes back up, and we put him in the bullpen, which somewhat surprised me. I did not really expect to see Plutko starting and Zimmerman coming in for that bulk relief role, but it worked out really well. And Zimmerman actually talked a little bit after the game about how he felt like his mentality, he was able to just attack a little bit more. And he wasn't trying to be quite so fine with it. And we did see him run a couple fastballs up to 94 or so, which he hadn't typically been doing. So yeah, I really liked what I saw out of him. And I think that this was another instance of the Orioles like being gentle with their young arms, not trying to expose them too much, not trying to put too much pressure on them. And I think it worked out well.
Well, go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, I mean, to be fair, I mean, the Orioles did win that game and Zimmerman came in and did really well, but it didn't go really well because Plutko pitched terribly the first inning and put us down 4-0 or whatever it was, right, to start the game. So I don't know if it like went well.
Well, but I'm just saying went well in terms of Zimmerman, went well in terms of their treatment of him and how he reacted.
Well, and I wrote on Camden Chat this week about how this is kind of an example of a thing the Orioles could stand to do a little more often with their pitching staff is try things that are different from the norm. Because I think prior to this game, the only other time they had gone into a game with the plan of the guy that started not lasting more than an inning or two was that Wade LeBlanc start where they were like, yeah, throw him to the Wolves, whatever happens, who cares? So, I don't know if this was Brandon Hyde's strategy going in, but you let Adam Plutko start, who's really good against right-handed hitters rather. The Yankees have a ton of right-handed hitters. You let him face the teeth of the lineup the first time. Then you let Bruce Zimmerman come in and get the bottom of the lineup and then delay facing the middle of the lineup for a second time until like the fourth or fifth inning. That lets Bruce Zimmerman get at least an inning more into the game than he probably normally would have, which he went 5 1/3 innings. That's an inning more than Bruce Zimmerman probably normally would go against the Yankees. So again, I don't know if the plan was for Adam Plutko to implode in the first inning like he did and then have Bruce Zimmerman clean up the mess. It could have been, oh, we're down 4-0. We're probably going to lose. Just put Zimmerman in because we know he can give us length. The Orioles offense came to play that day. But if the strategy was what actually happened, I commend Brandon Hyde for it because I think it makes a lot of sense on paper. Jess, did you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see pros and cons to that system. Like you said, avoiding the order one more time and then maybe being able to get an extra inning, that's definitely appealing. I mean, I think that it is hard to come in. I think it's difficult to come in as the second pitcher in an opener, just because you basically are functioning as a starting pitcher, but you don't have the same routine that you normally do coming in when it's going to be the second inning. You don't know when your first pitch is going to be thrown like a starting pitcher would. Unless you're the home team, I guess you don't know, or the away team. I guess you don't. If you're the away team starting pitcher, you don't know exactly when you're throwing, but basically you do, right? And so I think that it is kind of difficult when the plan is for you to come into the second or the third inning and you don't know exactly when that is, because starting pitchers normally start their pitching routine hours before, right, they actually start. I think that is one thing to consider. I definitely think Hyde should be having conversations with, and I would assume he is, with Zimmerman about how he feels coming into a game like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. I guess I say all that to say, he is a young pitcher, and normally like my initial inclination would be maybe don't put a young pitcher trying to just get an understanding of what it's like to pitch in the MLB. Don't put a young pitcher through that. But I definitely see how there are advantages to it. And maybe for someone like Zimmerman, in some situations, the advantages outweigh the cons of it. So I just think it's a balance, and I think that it's something that maybe should be experimented with, and we'll see how it goes and whatever. But I also can see how a starting pitcher would want the routine and the stability to come in with it being kind of their game in a sense, kind of having that sort of feeling. And you just have a lot more control over the situation when you actually start the game than when you're the second pitcher after an opener. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely should be a case by case basis. Like Eli, it sounded like Eli said, Zimmerman said he was excited about it, enjoyed the role. I think another guy that's an obvious person to try something different with is Jorge Lopez, because he has very distinctive splits between parts of the game. I'm not sure you do it with somebody like Matt Harvey, who has been in the league for a long time, kind of has his routine down. Maybe you try it with somebody who is obviously scuffling in certain parts of the game. But yeah, the Orioles are they're very starved for starting type of pitching or length in a game from a pitcher. So why not try something a little bit different? And, it won't work for all of them, but it seems to work for Bruce Zimmerman. So, something to kind of keep an eye on and monitor as we go on.
And I mean, this is a problem, of course, when we're having conversations about two, and maybe even Kramer you throw into this. Probably not, just because he is a little more, I would say, durable than the other two starters. But when we're having conversations about 2/maybe 3 starting pitchers in our rotation needing or requiring or benefiting from an opener,
some kind of special treatment.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a good place to be from an organizational perspective.
No, not at all. And it's, not surprising either. We knew the pitching was going to be rough, and I think we were a little spoiled the first month of the season, and now our nightmares are becoming reality, unfortunately. But something that is going better than expected so far this season, I don't know, better than expected, I would say as good as we expected it to be, is Trey Mancini is fully back. And after scuffling a little bit the first week or two of the season, he is now on fire at the plate. In May, he has a 1.027 OPS in the month of May. He is now leading, I think, what is it, all of Major League Baseball or just the American League?
All of Major League Baseball.
All of Major League Baseball in RBI, which we know, is not the most important metric. And if there's anybody in the team that's going to knock in runs, it's Mancini, because pretty much nobody else does. But he looks really, really good. And I think Rich Hill said yesterday, you should just give the comeback player of the year award to Trey Mancini right now. Do you guys have anything against that?
Sign me up.
Yeah. But okay. So Mancini, he's hitting really well. It's awesome. It's a very feel-good story, but reality kind of smacks you in the face here, because the Orioles, as we just talked about, they have an issue at first base and DH where they need to get Stewart at bats, Mountcastle at bats. Mancini's a guy that has one additional year of team control after 2021. So, the trade question kind of comes in. We've talked about this recently on the show, and, you guys weren't so sure about it. Have your opinions changed at all? Do you think Trey Mancini gets moved during the 2021 season? Eli, you want to go to you first?
Yeah, so the question is, do I think? And I'm going to stress that is the question, because do I think and do I want have two different answers. Yeah, I think Trey Mancini is going to get traded. I think it's going to sting. But I think the Orioles' hand is kind of being forced for them. And I think that is because Mountcastle has shown, he's an adequate defensive DH. I think that he has shown that he really struggles in the outfield. Mm-hmm. And I think giving him a permanent home from which to build off of, he started hitting the ball a little bit better recently in May. I think that's good for the Orioles' long-term growth. And I think that Trey Mancini is, he hit 290 with 35 bombs in 2019, obviously missed 2020. He's coming out, already has 10 bombs. He's hitting for a good average. He's a legitimate offensive threat in anywhere in the MLB, in any lineup. He's an addition. He's an asset. And I think that will come at a premium price to some team that is excited to bring him on. And I think the Orioles will get some probably pretty near MLB ready legitimate prospects. That being said, I hate the thought of it. I just do not see anywhere for Trey Mancini in a future Orioles team. I think our outfield is spoken for with the prospects and the young guys that we do have up. And I think first base is spoken for. I think our DH role is spoken for. And it's just getting crowded.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I would say is that I think the Orioles are going to have an incentive to trade him at this point because he is hitting well, but also just out of need, as we talked about with DJ Stewart, basically kind of needing to occupy the DH role. A lot of the time he can play outfield, but it's not ideal. And with Mountcastle at this point being limited to a first base DH role, from an Orioles flexibility perspective, not having Trey Mancini on the team would be a big benefit strictly from that lens, especially when Stewart and Mountcastle are guys that we are trying to get in the lineup to give opportunity, to give playing time to. Despite Mancini's production, he does hinder the Orioles' ability to do that, especially when, as we were talking about, we have Santander in the outfield. We have Hayes in the outfield that's playing pretty well, that are hindering Stewart's ability to be in the outfield, right? So I think that it does make sense for the Orioles to trade him. He is really hot right now. But Mancini, the thing about him is he's known to do this. There are months where he kind of plays way above his ability, not above his ability, because he's clearly able to do this, but he has hot streaks where he really just tears the cover off the ball for a couple months. And then the rest of the year, he kind of plays more kind of at his standard production level, right? Yeah. So I guess my thing is the question, and I think it is likely that he does go. I think what the return will be for him is going to be more dependent on how hot he is at the moment the Orioles end up trading him. And I think that's going to make a big difference.
Well, see, so my thing is because what we talked about a couple weeks ago, I think you guys had brought up that, yes, he's a good hitter, but he's also a first base only guy. So you need to be a better than good hitter to be considered a top 10 sort of first baseman,
Especially if you get dealt to the NL, right?
Right. So, I think what other teams are looking at is, yes, it's nice if he's hot at the moment when you trade for him. Maybe he carries that over to your team. But I think more so is, this is a guy with a track record. He's in his late 20s. This is, when we want to still get really productive baseball out of him. Has he come back from his cancer treatments and gone back to being the player he was in 2019? And if you look at his numbers, he's almost exactly the player he was in 2019. His OPS on the season is 40 points lower, but his OPS plus is a point higher. His batting average is a little lower. His OBP is a little lower. His slugging is right in the same neighborhood. He's on pace to hit about the same number of home runs. This is a guy that looks like he hasn't skipped a beat after missing an entire year of baseball, which I think a team is going to go, cool, sign me up. He can be my first baseman every day. I don't know what team right now it is that needs that. I haven't surveyed the landscape, but I'm sure it's out there. And, the return is not going to be massive. I don't think. I think we need to prepare for that because, there's a lot of first basemen out there that can hit a little bit. And in all likelihood, if you're a good team, you probably have a first baseman that can already hit pretty well, or you're getting offense from somewhere else in the lineup that, a first baseman might put you over the top, but it's probably not as important as, a number 2 pitcher or something that might be out there. Because I think Mancini is kind of a stark contrast to Means, who Means is all of a sudden really, really good. Not out of nowhere because he was an all-star, but you'd be buying a lot on this season if you were to trade for him. Whereas Mancini's got this multi-season track record. So, probably not as worth as much as Means, but more of a known commodity, I think, and easier to move, obviously, than John Means would be. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, it'd be a real bummer to see Trey go, but the Orioles are where they're at in their development, and if you're saying Mountcastle's our guy, Mancini's got to go, unfortunately.
Right, and we've kind of been expecting this to come for a while, with with Mountcastle in the minors and having done really well. And, we kind of expected him to be the first baseman of the future. I think at one point, Oriole fans were like contemplating a potential extension for Mancini, but especially as Mountcastle has become more solidified as the future guy, the extension possibility has vastly diminished.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked on here before. I think like the skill set of Trey Mancini, does it age well? I'm not so sure. There's other first basemen like, yeah, maybe you give him that extension, but Mancini doesn't quite look that way. But hopefully somebody does, because he seems like a really cool guy. And I like Trey Mancini. Big fan of him, whether he's with the Orioles or not. So we will see.
For the record, I would support like a 3-4 year extension of Mancini. I think, I still think that, DJ Stewart is not at the level yet where we can commit to him like for a full-time DH role. So, I think the Orioles keeping him around from a PR standpoint, from a clubhouse standpoint, would still be a good thing. And I think it would be a net benefit, of course. And I just wanted to throw that out there. I felt like we talked about the extension possibility as a like less than 10% chance. And I think it's larger than that.
I think that it all depends on, it's a balancing act. I think you put him out there on the market and you look at what other teams are talking to you about. Right. And if it's some low ball offer that you don't feel that players coming back are likely to turn into major league contributors, then what's the point? Maybe we hold on to Trey and try and trade him again next year, or maybe we add a couple years to it. I'm not so sure. I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like his future doesn't seem like it lines up well with the Orioles' future. If the Orioles were maybe thinking next year they could make a real run at things, the math is a little bit different. But just with the trajectory right now, I think that it doesn't line up quite right.
I guess I just want to say, like, I really don't agree with that analysis. I think, I mean, just exactly for the reasons Tyler was saying, like a 4-year extension, like especially at this point in Mancini's career, like you were saying, his skill set doesn't really age that well. I think there is a lot of volatility.
I mean, that only takes him to 33 years old.
Right, but I think there is a lot of volatility in what his production might be. And the fact that he is an inflexible player, I mean, it seems like a contract that we might end up getting stuck with and regretting later in the future. And the one other thing I would say is, like, I don't think the Orioles should really entertain the idea of an extension at the bare minimum until like his contract is up, and or maybe like a half season before. Like at this point, with 1.5 years left on the contract, I think from the Orioles' perspective, it doesn't make sense for the Orioles to be entertaining an extension unless you could get them like ridiculously cheap or something, which I don't think is likely, because I think Mancini is going to want to, test his ability on the free agent market. But barring some like very, very bizarre circumstances, especially at this point, I don't think the Orioles should be thinking about an extension.
Well, and what I would say is, like, we need to kind of think of it as, I don't care if the Orioles give him an extension, go for it. As long as that doesn't then become, oh, we can't sign these other players because of, I don't want to hear that. You sign Trey Mancini, that's fine. I still want you to go give, Means an extension and also develop the minor leagues. That's, it's the owner's money. The Orioles have shown they can spend money. So as long as we're still getting the prospects and the team to be competitive while also having Mancini on the books, I'm totally cool with that. I just don't want it to be some crutch that the Orioles ownership goes to and says, well, look, we signed this guy to a $15 million a year contract. We can't go sign some number two pitcher to back up Grayson Rodriguez on the mound. We can't do it. Like, no, I'm not listening to that. All right. Last topic we've got here is, now that the pandemic is not necessarily winding down, but the optics have shifted a little bit. The population is getting vaccinated more and more. I think all three of us by this weekend will officially be fully vaccinated, which is very cool. Camden Yards is lifting their restrictions on capacity. You will still have to wear a mask when you're walking around the ballpark, and they are still not allowing you to bring in outside food and beverage, which I don't understand how that helps with the COVID thing. So I'm a little upset about that. But you guys have any thoughts just about yes, Camden Yards is lifting restrictions, but maybe on the changing landscape of COVID and professional sports and going to sporting events?
I mean, of course, my instinct is that it's too soon. I think that optically we're at a place where everybody wants the pandemic to be over and wants to completely move on and pretend like this isn't a thing that is impacting people's lives and killing people. The one thing I will say about it is there is a lot of evidence that outdoor arrangements are a lot safer than indoor arrangements. But still, with that said, do I think that this decision is being made with the best interest of the public's health and safety in mind? No, I don't think so. I
the
think
best interest of the owner's pockets, right?
Exactly.
Give Trey Mancini an extension.
Exactly right.
Hey, if it gives Trey Mancini an extension, I don't know.
Oh God,
I'm joking.
But yeah, so I'm definitely skeptical of it.
Will you be going to an Oriole game?
I mean, that's what I was just gonna say. Is despite me being vaccinated, I think just like from a public perspective, like me wanting to do the right thing and encourage people to do the right thing. If I'm saying that the building should not be at full capacity, am I going to go and
be a hypocrite?
Yeah, be a hypocrite and basically enforce and reconfirm in people's minds that like this is an okay and acceptable, thing from a public health and safety perspective to do, right? I'm not sure. So, I mean, maybe if, the numbers are looking shockingly good or something like that, maybe I would. But at this point, I think that I think just from a principled perspective, I think I would stay away.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of torn on it. Well, if we're realistic about it, the Orioles are not going to have a sellout of 45,000 fans anytime soon. So the odds that the Orioles have every seat filled anytime soon are very low. Also, it's outside, which has been shown, low transmission rates. The population is getting more and more vaccinated. I would like for there to be some sort of you need to be vaccinated to go to the game sort of barrier there. That would make me feel a lot better too. But we got to sit and wait. I don't think I'm going to go the first weekend of June, but I think as the summer goes on, the numbers change. I'm definitely open to it. I do think it's ridiculous though that they're not allowing personal food and drink in. That's something the Orioles have done for forever. It makes it more affordable for families. Like, I think that's ridiculous. And I don't understand how that helps with COVID in any way, shape, or form. Eli, do you have any thoughts about this?
I would love to be principled. I would love to have hesitation, but if I had the opportunity to go see a Major League Baseball game, I would do it.
Since you have it in a year and a half
right.
at this point, except for
some spring training games. But
right.
Yeah, those were distanced. Those had those restrictions. If I could go in and just feel the energy of a crowd and see a game, I would be super excited to do that. And I don't know, like I'd probably hear it from Jesse, and and it would be valid. I wouldn't have a good counter argument, but I'd want to go, and I will go at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to personal responsibility too. Like if you're one of those people that's like, I don't want to wear a mask and I don't want to get vaccinated, it's like, okay, well then you shouldn't go to a baseball game. But I think if you're doing all the other precautions right and you're going to an outside entertainment thing, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it. You got to watch out for people in your life that can't be protected from it. But apart from that, get back to life a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Before we go, we do want to do Guess That Oriole. Last week, I forget what the 3 clues were, but Rick Sutcliffe was the answer. Brady, thank you. Shout out again for DMing us. Always Brady. Other people are allowed to participate for sure. So feel free to DM us or email us or just tweet at us at The Warehouse Pod or thewarehousepod@gmail.com. This week's 3 clues. Clue number 1. This person was a member of the 1983 Orioles World Series championship team.
This person was the American League Rookie of the Year in 1973.
And this person also went to Virginia State on a basketball scholarship and played there for 4 years.
That is pretty surprising because normally, you hear about the basketball guys, they end up being football players. Although Amir Garrett for the Reds was played at St. Joe's, right? St. Joseph's University. So
and you remember cool. Mark Hendrickson, Oriole extraordinaire, former NBA player.
That's true.
I mean, baseball players are generally athletic, I would say, and oftentimes are multi-sport athletes.
I mean, Mark Hendrickson, I don't know if I would have described him as athletic, but he was tall.
Right.
So there's that.
So this is one of the funnest facts ever about him. So he pitched in a game. It was against the Blue Jays. I think the other guy was Josh Towers. And I only remember that because he was a tower. Hendrickson was 6'10", and I think Towers was like 6'7", and it was the tallest starting pitching matchup in history.
I remember that.
Okay.
But between the two dudes, they were over 13 feet tall. It was just obscene.
Of course, now we can't really use Mark Hendrickson for Guess the Oriole. So
we could use different.
If we give other clues,
maybe in a year we can or something after people have kind of forgotten about this. But yeah,
true. Oh, and it also makes me think of Pat Connaughton, who went to Notre Dame. The Orioles drafted him. I think they still have his rights, but he's currently playing for the Milwaukee Bucks, I believe.
Yeah, the Bucks. Starting 9, Barstool podcast had him on. And, they're a baseball podcast. They had him on and did a full-on interview with him. And apparently he can throw like 96.
Yeah, I remember he was like a legitimate one of their top 30 prospects. He went to school with Mancini. So that's kind of cool.
Right.
Very cool. But all right, those are the facts. So, tweet at us, email us, DM us on Instagram what you think the answer is to the Guess That Oriole. This coming week, the Orioles have 3 games against the Nationals, including a game tonight. 3 against the Minnesota Twins, and 3 at the Chicago White Sox. We'll probably record next time sometime in there. But for these next 9 games, what is the outlook for the currently scuffling Orioles? Jesse, what do you think the record's going to be in these 9 games?
Right. So we are all playing them on the road, which does historically favor us. So I am going to say we're going to get swept by the Nationals. We'll win. We'll win 2 against the Twins, and we will get swept by the White Sox.
Wow, that's a reversal. You were thinking the Twins were going to take us 2 out of 3, I thought, before the podcast.
It's really wild because, like, last week, for instance, I had the Orioles winning 2 games, and, of course, the Orioles lost both of the Yankee games I thought they would win and won the one I thought they would lose. I was correct that they lost all of them against Tampa. I guess that was probably the most easiest part of the prediction I could have made.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Washington and Chicago do not look like good matchups for us, though, I would say.
Yeah, so let me give the pitching matchups real quick for that. Tonight, Friday, it's Jorge Lopez against Steven Strasburg. I think Strasburg's only making like his second start of the year, though.
Right.
Bruce Zimmerman against John Lester. And then Matt Harvey against Patrick Corbin. And Corbin's not been very good this year. So
and
you never know.
Lester, too, has been okay.
Yeah, he's John Lester, though,
Yeah, right.
There's an air of mystique. Yeah, that's true.
Eli,
what about you?
Yeah, so I've got us taking, let's see. I got us taking 1 against Washington. I think we eke out the Zimmerman-Lester game. I've got us taking 1 against Minnesota and then getting swept by the White Sox.
Okay.
Yeah, Minnesota's kind of been scuffling. And quite frankly, the Nats haven't been as good as most expected. And the White Sox are currently arguably the best team in baseball.
Yeah. I think I'm going to say 2 from the Nationals because I feel like the Orioles normally play the Nationals pretty well, even when the Nationals are good. So I'm going to say 2 against the Nationals. And I think, that Zimmerman game we win, which that's kind of a big deal. He's starting again. We didn't really talk about that. But they win that Zimmerman game. And then I think Matt Harvey gets back on track a little bit.
I like it.
Take that. And then I'll say, 1 out of 3 against – I'll say 1 out of 3 each of the 2 AL Central series, 1 from the Twins and 1 from the White Sox. So that's what, 4 and 5.
4 and 5.
So
I've got us 2 and 7.
And Jesse, what were you?
I mean, Tyler, we should all be ecstatic if the Orioles go in 4-5 this upcoming week. I mean,
that's what I'm saying though, is like they're not going to be 1-11 every 12 games. You know what I mean? They're going to have good. So I'm going.
Whether it happens immediately though is the question.
That is true. Yes. That is true.
Yeah, and I mean, so just so everybody knows, even though we probably the previous week probably warranted it, we don't have a silver lining of the week segment for this week.
Oh yeah, we botched it on that one. Look, this came together last second. We're kind of recording real quick, but we appreciate you for listening this far into the podcast anyway. So yeah. All right, so next week we'll recap those games, maybe only 6 of them. If who knows when we record, we'll see. We'll have a new guest at Oriole. We'll reveal this week's guest at Oriole, and hopefully Trey Mancini is still crushing it. Cool.
See what happens. I guess if we did have a silver lining, it would have been Mancini. So
that's true.
It worked out.
We did have one. We just didn't call it that.
Yeah.
So what you can do to support the podcast is subscribe to us on your various podcast platforms. You can email us, thewarehousepod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Warehouse Pod. And you can also follow us individually. Jesse, where can people follow you?
If people would like to, they can follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at Juggernaut8678.
Nice. And Eli, how about you?
That's pretty good. I'm on Instagram at Ginsey55 and on Twitter at Elijah Ginsberg.
Cool. And I am on both as well at _Ty Young and at CamdenChat.com. All right. Very well. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Warehouse Podcast. Until next time, I'm Tyler.
I'm Jesse.
And I'm Eli.
Let's go O's.